What's up? So, it's been a little bit since my last video. Almost 2 months. Actually, may have been a bit over 2 months. Anyway, I'm back, and as much as I'd like to say that I was doing productive shit, um, for that time, I was actually just getting violently high and, being lazy. But we're back, and I've got a banger story to tell you today. This story is about the time that I unknowingly took around 6 grams of mushrooms. So, without further ado, let's get into the story. Actually, there is further ado. If you like the video, drop a like. And if you like the content and you want to see more stuff like it, subscribe. And now, let's get into the story. So, this story takes place at the end of my first semester, junior year of high school. And on this particular day, I actually knew I was going to be tripping because me and a couple of friends who I think I mentioned in my previous video, Alex, Sam, and a new person who I'll call Jake, had all pre-purchased 4 grams of shrooms from our shroom plug, Tristan. However, Tristan never told us the actual gram amount. He would just refer to it as one dose, which we later came to find out one dose was 4 grams. But on this day, I went through school like normal. Anytime I would see, Sam not Sam, anytime I'd see Alex or Jake, I'd mention to them, I'd be like, yo, dude, I'm psyched for tonight. It's going to be heat. But on this particular day, Sam had actually stayed home sick. So when it came time to go pick up from Tristan, we all pulled up, and since we had prepaid, we ended up getting Sam's bag of mushrooms as well. Now, we decided that the best course of action, instead of, saving his mushrooms for him and giving them to him the next day, was to instead split them between us. However, Jake had had let's just say, not amazing time the last time he tripped, and he decided to stick with his 4 grams. So, Sam's dose ended up being split between me and Alex. Now, after we divvied up the dose, and we were chilling for a bit, hanging out, tapping the cart, talking about whatever. I mentioned to Jake, I'm like, yo, I kind of got to get home soon, so can you drive me home? So he ends up driving me home, and I'm like, okay, I'll text you guys when I take my dose, see ya. So I get home, and I'm just chilling. I'm playing Xbox. I think I was playing, COD Black Ops 3, fucking whatever I was playing. I only end up playing for a little over, 2 hours before I decide, hey, it's probably about time that I dose up. So I wait until my parents are, out of the house. They were fucking doing whatever. I go up and I fix myself up a peanut butter and shroom sandwich. Now, for any of you who haven't taken shrooms, first off, obviously, don't do drugs. But if you're gonna do it anyway, they taste terrible. And this is, by far the best way. It doesn't fully mask the taste, but this is definitely one of the best ways to, get rid of the taste. They taste horrific. Definitely put them on a sandwich. So, I text, Alex and Jake. I'm like, yo, I'm taking my dose right now. And they're like, all right, we're going to take our dose a little bit later. So I end up eating my sandwich, and I'm just chilling out. I'm playing, COD Zombies or whatever. And I end up calling with Jake. It had been about half an hour, and Jake was like, yo, you feeling it yet? And I was like, no. You trying to just, call, and then I'll tell you when it hits. And he was like, sure. So we're talking about nothing, and we're talking, going back and forth. And I was sort of slumped in my chair. No, terrible, terrible fucking posture. But I go to sit up, and, on a normal shroom trip, when you start coming up, you get, like, enhanced visuals. You get all the colors seem brighter. They seem, more eye-catching, and they look more aesthetically pleasing, I guess. Along with, you get like a warm feeling in your chest, and you get sort of this like energized, euphoric feeling throughout your body. So I'm feeling nothing. I'm feeling maybe a little bit nauseous, but that's typical from a shroom come up. I'm not getting any visuals. I'm not feeling anything until I go to sit up in my chair. And as soon as I sit up, I realize, holy fuck, I'm tripping really hard all of a sudden. So I mentioned that to Jake. I'm like, hey Jake, it just hit me, and this come up is about the same strength as my last dose. Now, I had only taken mushrooms about 2 or 3 times before this, but my last dose was 3.5 grams, and its peak was around the same strength as this come up. And I'm not gonna lie, this made me tweak a little bit. And I mentioned that to Jake. I was like, dude, if this is how hard I'm tripping now, like, how hard am I gonna be fucking tripping, like, when I peak? And he was like, nah, dude, like, don't worry about it. It's gonna be heat. It's gonna be a banger. It's gonna be fun as hell. And I was like, yeah, no, you're probably right. So he actually ends up dipping off to go take his dose early, because he wanted to, be tripping while I was. And I'm left to my own devices. I'm sort of just like, I'm looking at stuff. I'm looking at the walls, the drapes, the ceilings. And as I'm sort of looking around, and I'm coming up more, patterns start to form. And I'm seeing like these intricate patterns and like colors blending together, like greens and reds in these detailed, intricate patterns. It's so cool. Like, my description can't do the come up of a shroom trip justice. It's really cool to see. But anyway, I'm coming up, and I noticed that the the euphoria is almost too strong. Like, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. And at first I was like, okay, I just gotta like, chill out and maybe focus my attention on something. And I try to focus my attention on YouTube or something like that, and I can't. The video makes no fucking sense to me. I just don't understand it. I'm rewinding the same like 20 seconds over and over, and nothing's making sense. And I start tweaking out. So I decide that I'm going to go smoke up. And around this time in my life, bud was a real rarity. It was a like commodity. So I had saved up a little bit of, let's be honest, probably some shake, but it was bud nonetheless. I had saved up some bud for this exact occasion. So I end up going outside for a little walk and smoking what little bud I had out of my Red Bull can. And at first, it did help. At first, I started to feel, more relaxed. I was feeling calmer. And I was like, okay, this isn't too bad. And then I don't know if it was just me, sort of coming closer towards my peak, or I ended up smoking more weed than I should have. But I started to get even more overwhelmed. I'm not gonna lie. I was tweaking. And so I'm like, okay, I just need to go inside. And I end up going back inside, and the visuals are just getting stronger and stronger. Like, it's hard to make out anything. And I'm looking around, and I don't really know what's happening. And somewhere in this process, I realized that my mouth is insanely dry, and that to my shroomed out brain, the only thing that could possibly quench this thirst is a Sprite. And so I make probably the dumbest decision to walk down to the store, which was close to 2/3 of a mile away from my house, to go buy a Sprite at 10 o'clock at night. So I, get my coat on, and I begin my journey. And as I'm going down, at first I'm texting with, you know, Jake and Alex about like what's going on. I'm like, yeah, I'm going down to the store. I'm coming up really fucking hard. Like, tell me when it hits you guys. And then about halfway down, I start to feel like myself peaking. And I realize, I'm too whacked out to really text properly. I can't I can't make out, the letters on my phone. So I just put my phone in my pocket and I continue walking down to the store. And I finally get there and I get myself my long awaited Sprite. And as I get this Sprite and I go outside, I realize that I fully peaked and I'm low-key tripping too hard to really figure out my way home. I'm trying to look around and I'm looking down at my hands and stuff, and everything is these swirling, intricate patterns. Like, the patterns are overlapping. Like, they're part of the wall, but they're also part of my arm. And it's hard to tell where my body ends and the rest of the world begins and what I'm actually looking at. And I'm tripping fucking hard. So I end up sitting outside this really run down 7-Eleven, just waiting for me to be at least a little bit more sober before I start my trek back home. And after a little bit of just sipping on my Sprite, I finally gather my mental courage to start heading back home. And as I'm heading back home, this body feeling, I gotta say, the euphoria was probably the only thing keeping me on track. I was feeling fucking fantastic. Like, when I wasn't tweaking out about, the scary monsters in the woods, I was low-key feeling fucking fantastic. So I start the trek home, and I'm walking, sipping on this Sprite. And I get about halfway up, and I guess the Sprite didn't sit well with me, because I'm starting to feel nauseous. So I step off the road, and I step into the forest a little bit. And I'm bracing for the worst. Normally if you feel nauseous during a shroom trip, you gotta accept that you're just gonna vomit. But I actually ended up not vomiting. However, I guess I had ventured too far into the forest, because when I go to look around for the road, I can't fucking find it. And I'm totally lost. So, obviously, the only thing to do in my shroomed out brain was pull out Google Maps. Because, to me, I either found my way home with Google Maps, or I was going to starve to death in these woods. Realistically, I was probably maybe 20 feet from the road, and just couldn't tell. But I end up taking out Google Maps, and somehow, after wandering around for 5 minutes, I finally get back onto the road. So, I'm walking back to my house, and when I pull back up to my house, I notice that the upstairs lights were on. And my parents go to bed pretty early. They go to bed around 8 o'clock. So, I was a little confused, but I didn't really pay it any mind, because I'm tripping, and I don't really care what they're doing. So, I get inside, and I get into my room, and I slump down, and about half a minute after I slump down in my bed, my dad barges through my fucking door. And he's pissed. He's like, "What the fuck were you doing? Like, where were you going? You can't just fucking leave without asking. Like, what the fuck were you doing?" And I was at the point, I didn't really understand why he was yelling at me. Like, I didn't piece it together that he was mad that I just left the house at 10 o'clock for no apparent reason. But I kind of tried to play it off. I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm really tired, I'm worn out. Can we just talk about this tomorrow? Somehow, I guess it worked, but he did give me that look that's like, you're in big fuck, I'm pissed at you. You're in fucking trouble. So I kind of decided, we'll deal with that tomorrow. And I ended up just spending the rest of this trip sort of looking at stuff and just, hanging out, waiting for the come down. And, I finally got to sleep probably around, 1 o'clock, maybe 1:30. But kind of an abrupt end. I'm not gonna, actually, there's more. The next day, when we showed up to school, Alex and I ended up confronting Tristan and being like, "Yo, bro, how many grams were those doses? And he mentioned to us, oh, those were 4 grams. So that's how I ended up learning that I took around 6 grams. But, kind of an abrupt ending. But I feel like the story kind of warrants, like, the first part kind of warrants this story. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this story. And I'm going to be trying to upload more frequently. And I'm going to try and I'm going to try to, increase the quality of videos. I know I'm not amazing at storytelling right now. But I'm hoping that, with these stories, I can get better. And worst comes to worst, I can just remake them later. But I hope you guys did enjoy the story. And that's all. Peace.